G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room and this is episode 11, Taking It Further. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Virtual Staff Room. When I was teaching in Canada for a year, I happened to share a workroom with a guy called Simon. And Simon was a religious education teacher, and he was doing a course at the time in the integration of technologies into the classroom. And so he became quite fascinated with a whole lot of these new Web 2.0 tools that were appearing on the scene. And we had many interesting discussions about how they might be used in the classroom. And Simon started blogging, and he started using wikis, and we had a few interesting discussions about that. When I got back to Australia, I was intrigued to receive an email from Simon to say that he had met a fellow online called Neil from the UK, who was also a religious education teacher, and they decided to put together a little project which they've dubbed the Flat Planet Project, which was all about getting their students from both countries, from both classrooms, to work together across the web using wikis essentially, and also some blogs, to do this project where they looked at various things that were going on in the world, things like global warming and pollution and things like that, and get them to examine them from the standpoint of religious education. And it was interesting the way they did it. They teamed the kids up into groups of a couple of kids from Canada, a couple of kids from the UK, and they formed small groups to work on these projects. And I think the results are actually quite stunning, and the finished product to me is amazing. So I thought it'd be really good to get these two guys on the show and talk about what they did and how they did it, and hopefully get some insights into how they might be able to give us some advice on using these technologies for ourselves. So here we are, Neil and Simon. Well, it's my pleasure to have two wonderful teachers joining the virtual staff room today. We've got Neil D'Aggia from Surrey in the UK.
That's correct.
Yep. And we've got Simon O'Carroll from...
I'm in Milton, Canada.
Milton, and teaching in Oakville.
In Oakville, right.
Right, and Simon and I met last year while I was teaching in Oakville, and so we got to spend a fair bit of time chatting about all things IT. And the reason I'm talking to these two gentlemen today is because they've embarked on a really interesting global project called the Flat Planet Project. And perhaps, I don't know, Neil, how about you give us a little quick insight into what the Flat Planet was all about?
The Flat Planet was a wiki space and a blog that was started up between Simon and myself to try and explore the impact and environmental issues that are around at the moment, using both our classes to look at that and explore it.
Yep. What do you actually teach at your school?
I'm a religious education teacher at my school. It's my fourth year there. I'm also sort of in charge of developing IT within religious education, so this was an experiment to try and see how that would work as well.
Cool. Simon, tell us a little bit about you and your how you got involved in this Flat Planet project.
Well, I'm also a religious education teacher here in Canada, and over the past year, I was taking a course called Computers in the Classroom, but how to integrate computer technology into your everyday classes. And one of the things I started to explore with your help was wikis and blogging, and I thought that this would be an excellent tool to use in the class in some way. I wasn't sure how, and then at around the same time that I was sort of halfway through the course, I was put onto the K-12 online conference, where I saw a number of presentations, one by Mark Wagner on blogging, and another one that he did on wikis, and one by Vicki Davis that she did a presentation on her use of wikis.
Wiki While You Work, isn't that what it was called?
That was Mark Wagner's was Wiki While You Work.
Okay.
Forget the name of Vicky Davis's off the top of my head.
They were both very good. I remember watching both of them, and they were excellent.
Yeah, and actually Vicky's flat classroom project was a big inspiration for what we did, and we kind of relied on that project as sort of a model for what we Neil and I decided to do.
Yeah, Vicky's certainly a bit of a legend when it comes to the wiki, using wikis in the classroom, that's for sure.
She certainly is.
So it's interesting because I think, when you think about IT integration, I don't know, religious education is not one that immediately springs to mind in terms of integrating IT. You always think of maths and spreadsheets and science and databases and that type of thing. But you guys have taken RE and I think built something really unique and interesting with it.
Yeah, it was, I have to confess to the UK being quite a bit further behind in a lot of the things you've been talking about. I've given a number of talks now to different teachers in my area, and not hardly any of them had ever heard of a blog, let alone a wiki. So when we started doing this,
that's not a UK
talking
thing,
about
Neil,
it.
Don't worry.
And so when I started doing this, it brought it to the front, and my impetus came from my wife, actually, because about 2-3 years ago I had never had a blog. I knew what a blog was, so she encouraged me to start recording my stories of what I did in the classroom and stuff down in a blog, and through various evolutions of my blog it's developed. And then I've always wanted to hook up, and it was just a case of finding a way of hooking up with Simon and our two classes that was going to be best possible for both sets of students, because they're doing so much of a different course at different time speeds that that was one of the biggest challenges to start with, wasn't it, Simon? Trying to find a course or the project that would maximise the effect for them.
Yeah.
Because you've managed to make this fit into mainstream lessons. This is not an IT project that's been tacked on or done as an extracurricular thing. You've actually merged this right into the mainstream curriculum, right?
Yeah, well, the course I teach is a grade 12, which is 17, 18-year-old students, a course essentially on Catholic morality. And the way that I like to tackle that class is to try and make it as real as possible for the student, to connect it to real life issues. And the environment has been the issue, especially here in Canada. We've just had a federal election a few months ago, and the environment was named as the number one issue during that election. One of the leaders of one of the political parties based his campaign on the environment. He was going to be the environmental prime minister. He didn't get elected, by the way. But so it was taking the course expectations and thinking, how can we connect this with the real life? And some of my students were of voting age at the time, so it was like it was the perfect topic, I think, to bring into the course.
Fancy having a platform to get elected on environmental issues. Jeez, doesn't he know that you need to have it based on terrorism?
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't actually been to the Flat Planet project yet, you can find it at flatplanet.wikispaces.com, and I'll just give you a little quick overview of it. It's what you guys basically did is you took your two classes. Simon, you had a grade 12 class, and Neil, you had a year 10 class, and you split them up into teams of 4 kids, 2 kids from Canada, 2 kids from the UK, and gave each of those little 4-person teams a topic to work on. And I'm just looking through the topic list here. You've got climate change, animal testing, ozone depletion, I won't read them all out, but air pollution, vegetarianism, international whaling, deforestation. There's some really nitty-gritty topics in there. How did the kids respond to that?
The kids were really enthusiastic. I think the idea of doing something this innovative for them really progressed it on. And unlike in Simon's case, the political climate here in the UK is really, really open to the environment. Just really since Christmas, it started to really grow and take force. Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth came out on DVD here, and the Live Earth concerts are coming up, so it became a real political issue. So the kids wanted to get involved, and it was, well, I selected groups slightly differently to the way Simon did. My class being a Year 10 class, I decided that it might be a bit better for me, or easier for me, to assign them to topics that I thought might interest them in groupings where the academic ability was roughly the same, to make sure that a weaker group didn't get a harder topic, and vice versa, sort of thing. And Simon assigned his in a slightly different way, didn't you, Simon?
Yeah, essentially, I allowed the students to choose topics that were of interest to them, and in hopes that would have them more interested, more motivated in their work on it.
Yeah, well, it seems to have worked. How did you guys hook up? How did you actually meet each other to get this off the ground?
Well, it's funny. If you remember, a while back in the education blogosphere, there was a meme going around, 5 things about me.
Yep.
And I was tagged by you, Chris. And so I went off in search of 5 people that I could tag to post something on their blogs, 5 things, little known things about themselves. And I thought, instead of just tagging five bloggers that I was already familiar with, I wanted to search out and see if there were any other religious education teachers blogging. So I just started doing a search, basically, using Google to try and find a religious education blogger, and I found Neil, and I tagged him, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And through a blog. I think I was searching around the net the other day while I was researching for this, and found the blog post where I think you originally put a comment on Neil's blog or something, and it went from there.
Yeah, I couldn't find an email address, so I tagged him, I think, in his About Me page on his blog.
Yeah, that was right. And then I think I emailed you back and posted a comment on your blog about it as well, in response.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's an amazing ecosystem we've created.
Indeed.
So you've introduced this to the kids, and the kids, you've said to the kids, okay, we're going to be using wikis. Did they look at you and go, what's a wiki? Or were the kids pretty au fait with it? Like, what was the response you got from the students? And perhaps Neil, I'll throw that one to you.
Oh, right. So, yeah, for me, the kids were aware of what blogs were, but almost held them a little bit of derision. The MySpace, Facebook generation has sort of come and gone here, and it's almost gone from being cool to being past it a little bit. So the idea of blogs didn't go down too well with some of them, but the idea of having a project online which they could edit at home and in school and get involved that way really sold it to them. They didn't know what a wiki was, but the general idea of it really, they really took to really well. So
when I was first told about it, I was like, what's this? Because I didn't really know what wiki was, But when we were introduced to it and told about it, it was all quite intriguing. I just wanted to find out more.
I felt quite excited at the prospect of working with people in Canada. I was just wanted to hurry up and do the project and see what it would be like. It was an experience, definitely.
I wouldn't say it was a crazy idea, but I thought that going across a continent wouldn't be something that would work easily or would have lots of flaws to it. But once we got into it, it worked really well.
Well, it's definitely more fun and exciting, and it's a chance to meet new people from the other countries, and it's really good.
Because it gives people a chance to see how other people learn in other countries, which makes it much more interesting and engaging, and you generally learn more.
I gained the ability to work in a team, which was especially people which you haven't met and you're probably not going to meet. So I got to work with people from other countries, which was really great.
I knew it was with a class in Canada, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. Just across the seas, talking to other people and getting to know new people.
I think that the wiki worked really well as a group because when you collaborate with people, you see different aspects of the subject you're studying. Like, you see how it affects other people and different countries rather than just like what's on your doorstep.
But the truth and reality is there are no negatives really. All you can do is learn from this project. It's a very good project to do. You can learn a lot from it, and it's a very good reason to have fun on the computers and stuff at the same time as learning.
You're more inclined to do more work because it's with other people and not just in a boring classroom.
Well, it's much more engaging, and it gives you a chance to communicate with other people, and you learn. I feel like I learned a lot more working on the wiki than I would if I was in a classroom learning.
I mean, that was one thing that really, really impressed me about the wiki and the project as a whole, how mature and respectful the kids were when they posted on the blogs and the wiki. I don't think there was anything that we had to remove besides the occasional email address. Was that right, Simon?
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty good. I've been involved in international projects before, and we were always finding that someone would say something that would be misinterpreted, or culturally, it was okay in one culture, but in another culture it was a bit sort of misinterpreted. You didn't strike that?
I didn't find anything like that happening. I think some of my students were asking about some of the things that were said in the discussion, and I think it just might have been a question of slang differences or something like that, but nothing that concerned us really.
Yeah. Did you do any real-time stuff? Did you manage to Skype or do anything in real time?
We talked about it, but it didn't happen. I think the time difference was the problem. My class is every day at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, and Neil's they're 5 hours ahead of us over in the UK. And even if we were able to do it, I was concerned that it may not work too well because of the bandwidth that was available to me in my school. I don't know that it would support like a Skype conference or something like that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that was the same thing here. We probably could have just about got it off the ground, but I don't think it would have necessarily added to the project itself, if you see what I mean.
Were the kids
but we did talk
communicating outside of the project environment? Were they emailing each other, or was all the communication taking place within the wiki?
They tried to email each other outside of the environment, but one of the things we sort of laid down to them is we wanted the communication to be within the wiki.
Right, so it was documented.
Yeah, and that way it was part of the marking. We assessed them on that collaboration and communication. So that way we could make sure who was doing what work and monitor it.
Yeah, fair enough. So tell me some stories. What happened while you got it going? I'm sure there was interesting things that happened along the way and problems you overcame. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you a story about when I first introduced the project. I had 2 grade 12 classes, and obviously could only involve one of them in this. So the day I stood up in the front of the class to introduce, they knew a project of some sort was coming. And I told them, we were an ethics class, a morality class, and we would be dealing with an issue in some way from a Catholic moral perspective. And we had discussed the environment as an ethical issue in earlier class discussions. So I told them that we would be doing a project that would be an environmental project, and we'd be looking at it from the Catholic view. And I said, we talked about part of the course. We look at the fact that every action is sort of an interaction. So every action that you take has an effect on other people, and it couldn't be more true with the environment.
Yeah.
And I said, and I talked to them about the fact, a lot of the pollution that we have here in Ontario is generated south of the border, and the wind just blows it across. And it's called global warming. It's a global problem. And I said, with that in mind, we're going to look at this with somewhat of a global perspective. And then I told them that we would be partnering up with a team or a class in the United Kingdom. And when I told them that, the look on some of their faces was priceless. They're like, and I could see one of the students, one of the girls, sort of mouthing, "That's so cool," So it was really well received. And to be honest, I was a bit worried about how they were going to receive this idea, but they really embraced it.
Yeah, that's cool. Neil, anything like that from you?
The biggest factor of mine was they wanted to do the project, but they then wanted me to organise a trip to Canada to meet up with everyone.
That was predictable.
I got that every single week. Every single week it came up. It was annoyingly repetitive, really.
Yeah,
but it was a motivating factor as well. But they seemed to get it in their heads. They did really, really well at the project, that they might get a trip out of it. So it seemed to work really well. But the group that stretched me the most was the group that did air pollution. I think it was Ian and Ben, and Ty Mayer and Sandra. Ian and Ben got it into their heads. They wanted to do record a video interview, and they copied some images of BBC News and changed it around and made it into like a news bulletin.
Yep.
And they spent about 2 weeks putting this together. But it was so big, we're talking a good 5 or 6 gigs worth of memory, that they couldn't get it off my laptop to take it home and edit it.
5 or 6
and
gig.
to put it into a size 5 or 6 gig to start with. Luckily, when they finished and compacted it together, it was only something like 500 meg, but it took them 2 or 3 weeks to do this. It's an amazingly funny video, but the amount of time they put into that was unreal. Every break, lunch, before school, after school, for a week, they were in my room recording this.
Because one of the things you guys promoted was a use of multimedia. So there's lots of videos here, there's lots of images, and there's surveys and music playing in the background. They've really sort of explored the multimedia perspective of the project as well.
I think that was. I felt that was one of the key things. We didn't want it to just be RE. We wanted it to be static. We wanted them to stretch themselves.
Yeah.
So for some, there's a couple of boys in one of the groups who had barely been on the internet before, didn't have an email address, and never even knew what a blog was. So this was a real stretch for them. But there are others who were doing courses in Flash and programming and stuff who really wanted to stretch themselves. And I felt it was best to try and make sure that we could just sort of stretch them as much as they needed to be stretched. And it's gone through to other departments in my school, which was one of the plus points from it, I felt.
Yeah. Did you get much feedback from this project after it was done? Because I know, Simon, you were telling me that you were asked to speak at a meeting somewhere and explain to people about it. So have you had much sort of response to it from your fraternity brothers and sisters?
I was asked. I showed it to some of the teachers in my school knew about it, and then I happened to mention to some of them that it had been our wiki had been named Wikispace of the Month by Wikispaces, and at that point, one of the teachers who was organizing this, we were having an in-service in our school because we're piloting a smartboard program at our school, and so they asked me to come in and to join with them to speak to a group of teachers and administrators from our own board and from the neighboring school boards about what we were doing with technology in our classrooms.
How'd that go down?
It went down really well. I had a lot of people coming up to me after I had presented, and they were like, "How did you find the other class to work with?" And they were asking all about how the wiki works and that, and I got some really good positive feedback about it. And what I emphasized with them was the level of engagement that the students had while working on it.
Yeah, did you find that as well, Neil?
Yeah, I found that the level of engagement was amazing. They threw themselves into it, but also they didn't necessarily have to do any more homework than they would normally do, if you see what I mean. It enabled them to pace it quite well. I had some good feedback from physical colleagues, shall we say, in the real world, but I haven't...
Analog ones.
Most of... Yeah.
Analog colleagues.
But analog colleagues, yeah. Most of the emails and responses have come through via... Most of my responses have come through via the internet, via email or messages or comments on the wiki itself. So, although we both got asked to write an article for the Religious Teachers Journal of America as well on how wikis can make you a better RE teacher. Yeah,
wow.
I just sent that off the other day, but it won't be out till October though, so there's a little while gap in between it though.
Well, I must admit, I had to teach a workshop the other day in blogs and wikis for English teachers, and I took them to Wikispaces and got them to sign up for an account, and we were writing a little collaborative novel around the room. And I used yours as an example, and they were absolutely blown away by the sorts of things you guys have done and the extent to which you've built this thing, because it really is quite a substantial project.
Yeah, it's the challenge of it, as Simon and myself have talked about, is it's been so successful that it kind of leaves us with a where do we go from here type thing. You see what I mean? Because I think originally we both kind of thought of maybe we could repeat it next year or that kind of thing. But
don't you hate that when you do something really good and then the next time you walk into a classroom they all sit there and go, well,
yeah.
just waiting for the magic.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of the wiki or lose the work the pupils have done. Yeah. So I think we'll have to do a different project next year if we're going to do something together.
Well, that's a nice thing about this type of project. I mean, you've given them a basic framework and an engine to work within, but the content and what you actually put in there is pretty open-ended.
Indeed.
Oh, let me just have a look on the website here. You've got an FAQ section. Let me see the sorts of questions that were the FAQs. You haven't got any. There's no frequently asked questions.
They're in the discussion tab of it. There was a couple.
Right. Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
but not many.
I like the way you've used all the features here of the wiki. You've actually not only used it as a wiki, but you've engaged the discussion tab on the top to actually get the kids talking about each of the pages, which I think is a really powerful thing. Was there one of these subjects that you thought was particularly good, Neil?
I was a firm favourite of the air pollution one, but also the international whaling and fishing. But I think the one I felt most for was the vegetarianism group, because it's probably the hardest topic I had to do of any of them,
right?
And broadest, trying to make sure it all fitted in, but they also had the widest scope. But I think they struggled a bit in the end. I think there was a couple of issues on it. Obviously, it was the hardest topic to do, but also they had a couple of people missing for a couple of weeks of the project. So out of 4, 2 people were away for a couple of weeks, and I think they've produced a really clever, innovative idea, a well-researched idea of what vegetarianism and its effects, etc. And done really well considering how little time they had and how much they had to kind of create for themselves, because of it's slightly different to the parameters we set for the others about how it affects the environment differently in the UK and Canada and international agreements and church teachings and stuff. It was quite a difficult one for them to do, but they've really done it quite well.
Yeah, I'm just browsing through it now. It's they really have done tons of work. Sorry, go on.
You first.
I was just going to say one of the complaints or problems that are usually identified whenever I talk to teachers about doing this sort of thing is they go, oh yeah, but they'll plagiarise everything, you know, they'll just sort of take things from the web and cut and paste them and put them back in. Did you find that happened? And if you didn't, how did you deal with it?
There was a couple of pages that did, but what we stressed to them, we did this. There was this whole section in our marking called collaboration and communication.
Yep.
And it was to do with not only how they worked together, but how they delivered their final project. And we used it to try and encourage them to make it as academic as possible. The fact that it was grade 12 students and my year 10 class were a really top set, high achieving class, we were able to stress them trying to get it up to sort of college, university standard. We use things like Wikipedia to show them models about how to present text and hyperlink in topics and encourage them to do so. I mean, the other fact is we wanted one of the marks that was really heavily marked on how they reference their work. To show what they got from it. And almost every group did, and the ones that didn't, it is obvious, and they have been marked down quite harshly by the judges, which we're really fortunate to have marking for us on this.
Yeah,
it really helped.
I'm one of them, but I must admit I'm lagging a bit here. But I will do it. I will do it soon. Yeah, because that's normally, you know, the big problem with this type of work is they tend to take a web page and they just move it to a new location. They don't, you know, and to get them to think and to synthesise that information into a new form that makes sense to them is always a challenge. But it appears that they've done a good job.
I mean, one of the things I did to try and fully explore this, the wiki, was I not only ran it with the year 10 class that are on this wiki here, I ran it with a bottom set, sort of low ability year 10 class in parallel to it on a separate wiki, to see how the different challenges. And what I found was the lower ability people, they looked for the easier ways out. And I think the motivation and the understanding and the knowledge kind of helped the higher ability boys to really realise that they couldn't just copy and paste it because it wouldn't answer some of the questions. To find the right answers to some of the questions, they would have to digest and think about things. And that was the key, really.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to a workshop a couple of weeks ago with Jamie McKenzie, who is somewhat of a guru on this whole web questioning business. And he had some amazing strategies for avoiding plagiarism by setting questions in terms of, or setting tasks in terms of questions rather than tasks. You know, an example was something like, you know, we've got an explorer here in Australia, one of the early explorers, a guy called Matthew Flinders. And the typical research project you get when you go to school is, you know, research about Matthew Flinders and present a report to the class. But he said, if you just take that and turn it on its head and do something like, he found a website that had letters that Matthew Flinders had written to his wife, who was back in England at the time. And his question was, what sort of a man was Matthew Flinders? Which I think takes that right on its head and turns it around, and the kids then had to go and read the letters and make all sorts of inferences about what sort of man this guy was, and then find the evidence of that in the text and write about what they'd found. Which is basically saying go and research Matthew Flinders, except it's done in a way that really is very hard to plagiarise.
Exactly that, and one of the things I had to write for the article I mentioned before was how doing a wiki would make you a better teacher. And what I found in doing the sort of the project requirements and the grading and looking through them here, it really helped me think about, right, what do I want and how am I going to get them to get that? By asking them to look in the right ways and really breaking tasks down to make sure they understood it. And it's reflected back not only in this but in teaching in school and feedback to others, I suppose.
It was definitely a concern. As I personally experienced it in some classes before. The students just, copying and pasting. It was it was definitely in my mind when we were planning this, and I think that the various ways we asked them to explain this issue help with that. We wanted them to look at if you look at the project template. We asked them for some definitions and things like that, and that kind of thing is. Can you create a new definition? No. So it was something that we felt, they're going to have to get information that or knowledge that already exists.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, we asked them all to include a reference section in their wikis. And the way I address it with my students was that everyone's familiar with Wikipedia, and I said, essentially, what I like your final project to look like is something like a Wikipedia page.
Yep.
And we all know that Wikipedia pages has one of the very last things on the page is a works cited or a references thing that backs up or supports what information they've provided.
And some of your kids had rather long reference lists, I noticed.
Yes, yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at the project template as we speak, and you're right. To put a definition of a topic, there's only so many ways you can explain what global warming is.
Right.
Putting that in your own words is just rearranging deck chairs. But when you get into things like Catholic perspective on the topic, I imagine that's probably starting to get a harder thing to just go and find a pat answer to out of an existing piece of text. And by the time you get down to looking at solutions and ways to help the problem, that would be near impossible to just go and plagiarise. I would think.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I wouldn't say near impossible because there are things you can get, as I found with the parallel wiki I ran, but it's clear when you read it that there is only limited relation to the topic. So if they wanted to get the higher marks, which they did, they really needed to really put it into their own words and really reflect on it and think on it.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that if they wanted to get the higher marks, because when I was teaching at Trinity when I was there with Simon last year, I did a little podcasting project with a business class and structured it in such a way that they really couldn't get the higher mark unless they extended themselves beyond the normal. But they all wanted to do it. They were all determined to get into that top band. And it really amazed me because I got the impression with a lot of the kids in that class that 50 was a pass and 51 was too much work. But when it came to doing it using the online tools, they really engaged with it and felt like they wanted to extend it and get the highest mark possible.
Yeah, I agree. That makes a huge difference. And the benefit I had was the fact that my Year 10 class and the syllabus that we're working towards is, shall we say, a lot more basic than what we did online together here. What I explained to them really quickly was that if I wanted to, I could have taught them their syllabus content in about 10 days.
Yeah.
But we had a 5-week period to do it, and they would have found it really boring.
Yep.
So we wanted to make sure that we were stretching them, and it's probably stretched them to maybe 2 years ahead of where they should be in terms of other subjects as well. So we have like a slightly different grading system. Progress system in the UK where we have exams at the age of 15, 16 called GCSEs, and then they move on to do A-levels. Now, the work that they've done here actually covers sort of A-level standard biology and geography and IT, and RE as well. So they wanted to take that further and show that they could do that as a prerequisite for moving on when they get to that stage, if you see what I mean.
What I find fascinating about what you just said is that so often when I talk to teachers about integrating technology into what they do, that I get this thing about, I haven't got time for it. I got to get through the content. I got to get through the syllabus, and the IT stuff is seen as an add-on. But from what you're just talking about there, it seems like that by integrating or implementing IT, as a way of studying this stuff that you would have studied anyway. You've actually extended it way beyond what the syllabus actually specified.
Exactly that. And that was the hardest thing after doing this. I had to take them back to the syllabus to do the mandatory exam questions, and they found them so easy that they were quite almost. It was almost like a come down from the high of what we did together. So
Wow.
yeah, the IT stuff really managed to help me stretch them beyond this. Because I don't know about you, Simon, if we tried to teach them everything that's on this wiki, it would take us forever. It really
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fascinating what we say there about this idea that the integration of the IT actually extends what the kids do rather than compacts it. I mean, I had a class the other day, and it was this group where we did the wikis, and a couple of teachers said, it looks really interesting, but I'd never get through the content if I spend all my time doing the computer stuff. And I thought, which bit of this haven't you got? Like, to me, that just misses the point.
I mean, for me, what it does do is it switches responsibility from learning. A lot of teachers still work to the idea that teachers are responsible for the pupils' learning, whereas the wiki puts responsibility back on the students.
Yeah.
And therefore, when they have the motivation, they do go a lot quicker than teachers are used to.
Yeah, exactly.
They're so used to spoon-feeding them at times.
So would you say then that the quality of the learning that took place around the content that you were meaning to impart to these kids was of a higher standard than what they would normally get?
Most definitely.
Yeah, I think so. As I said, I had 2 grade 12 classes running at the same time as the Flat Planet project was ongoing, and the second class, they were doing the traditional project, and I could see the difference between the learning that was taking place, because the ones doing the Flat Planet project, it was like I needed. They needed very little encouragement. It was. They got into the lab, got up on the computers, and were taking control of it. Whereas with my other class, who were doing the traditional project,
oh, I know, you got to poke them with a stick to get them to do anything.
Please turn off the video games, and it needed a lot more supervision. So I definitely did see a difference that way.
Yeah, it's a fascinating observation, because I totally agree with you. That's always been my experience with this stuff, is that if you present it in the right way and give the right environment, that kids just take it and run with it, and you almost don't need to teach them. You just need to be there to be the traffic cop to guide them around and help them find whatever resources they need. But the actual work is done by them, and quite willingly.
Yeah.
My one worry with it, though, would be that I wouldn't want to, for the class I've just done it with, I would say maybe once or twice a year I would use the wiki, if you see what I mean. I think I would worry that an over-familiarity with it might sort of lessen the impact, if you see what I mean.
That's right.
How do you feel about that, Simon?
I'm not sure, because we in this grade 12 program, we have the traditional textbook, which is well, let's just say it's lacking, and myself and two of the other teachers who teach the course, we decided that instead of us trying to struggle through the semester using going through chapter by chapter, we decided to try something a little different. And what we did was assigned a group of 2 to 3 students a chapter, and then we started another wiki and each student had a page on the wiki for their chapter, and we made them responsible for the chapter. They had to create a set of notes, and they had to create questions for the class. So we found the wiki very beneficial in that way, because it got us away from the textbook, which made the daily lesson somewhat dry, to be perfectly honest, and allowed us to sort of attack what you might call the real world the kids, a number of the teachers in my school have started to use wikis for their courses as well. So a number of them were familiar with the use, and so we thought, well, why not use this in a way that gets the material that we're required to cover covered, and then move on to things that are more interesting.
Yep. It's all about covering the content.
Yeah.
You said something there that made me think. When I was showing this to the English teachers the other day, and they were all working on the wiki at once, we found ourselves tripping over each other a fair bit. And someone would put something on a page, and then you'd go back and it'd be gone because someone would have overwritten it because they were working concurrently. I imagine working across time zones probably is an advantage in that sense.
Yes and no. There was still 2 people per group working on it, if you see what I mean, at any one time.
So did you find that was a problem, that they were overriding each other's work?
Occasionally, but then there is a way to undo it quite easily in the wiki.
Yep.
Within the histories page, you can just revert back to the old thing. So once they learned that would happen, and then learned how to revert it, the mistake only happened once, if you see what I mean, per group or so forth.
That history thing's really interesting because I think as a teacher it gives you a real insight into which kids have actually contributed and how often.
It was like almost having the big brother eye watching. We can see who's doing what, when, who's talking to who, when, who's doing what research, and it was really beneficial.
I can remember on a couple of occasions being in the computer lab, and my students would be working on something, and they realized they had a question for their partners in Neil's class, and they would post it in the discussion tabs, and I can recall on a couple of occasions students saying, "Oh my, they've responded already." So there were times when the cross-Atlantic groups were working at the same time, even with the time difference, and it was really interesting to see.
I have to confess to something there, though. A couple of those occasions happened in non-RE lessons. So they were in an IT lesson or a DT lesson, and were checking up on the wiki, saw it, and then posted a response, or were editing it in other lessons. Just because they'd finished the classwork first, they thought, "Oh, I'll go do some more on my wiki," and then we're communicating then. It was.
Well, there's 2 things about that. I think one is that kids are wanting to work on a project outside the time where they have to work on a project, and the fact that you've built a project that happens is a winning formula in itself. But also that it's just that notion that they just want to contribute. As adults, I think we'd all get terribly not offended, but I don't know how as an adult I would cope if I had to work in 45-minute blocks of time, and when that 45-minute block was up, I had to go, "Okay, that's enough. I can't work on that till tomorrow." It's just not the way the world works, and yet we do that to kids all the time.
This is true.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should start winding it up. Well, first of all, I just mentioned the kudos you guys did get. You were nominated for Wikispace of the Month in Wikispaces for the month of April, wasn't it?
That's right.
So that was a nice little piece of kudos. And you were saying you've gotten a bit of feedback from the school boards and stuff. And Neil, did you get much feedback at your end?
Not from the school boards and stuff, but it is growing. I think it just will take a little bit of time for it to feed through.
Yeah.
But there has been a fair amount. I know heads of other schools in the area have now found out about it, and I've had to do a couple of emails out to people to let them know how to.
So you must have got a ton of positive feedback about this.
Yeah. Overall, I was flabbergasted really about how much feedback we've got.
Yeah.
And how many hits and stuff from different countries we've had.
Have you actually been tracking the hits?
Yeah. There's 2 ways. We look at it through the wiki, but when we go to the blog, we've got a cluster map on there of where people are coming from. And It's staggering. I mean, I think we've got more hits from America on the blog than we've had from the UK, and which is just phenomenal considering the UK UK were joint with writing the blog, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I've just flipped over to your cluster map right now and have a look. You've got dots everywhere.
Yeah. I think that the blog has over 3,000 hits, which blows me away.
South Africa, Singapore, Indonesia, Japan, China, New Zealand, Hawaii, Alaska. Man, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It was just how it grew so much so quickly was amazing. It really
And that's
was.
got to be great for the kids. I mean, for the kids to look at this cluster map and go, wow, this is not just, my teacher looking at this. This is actual, we've published. We haven't just handed something in.
Exactly.
That's right. And I told the students at the outset that, that we would have an international audience looking at us, and if, one of the photo of my class that I posted on the wiki, you can see there's a map of the world behind them.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And what I did was on the map. You can't see it on that photo in particular because that was the day I just put it up. We started to we sort of made our own cluster map in real time, and I had the students placing push pins on the map of places that had come to visit the.
That's a great idea.
And they were really amazed. And at one point, there were no South American pins on the map, so. They were like, when is this going to happen? And then the students were going to, some of them were saying, there's a girl who's of Taiwanese extraction, and she says, hasn't anyone come from Taiwan
That's
yet?
right.
And
I'll write to my cousin
somebody,
and ask her to look at it.
yeah, eventually somebody did come from Taiwan to look at it. So, and when they were seeing the progression and the more pins that arrived on the map, and then after we got nominated or were awarded Wikispace of the Month, the hits just spiked. Yeah. And I have to go buy another box of push pins.
Wow. That's very cool. And it's such a great feeling for kids to know that. And, teachers, more traditional teachers, have a hard time getting their head around that. And I keep getting the question from teachers all the time, but who's going to read this? Who's going to look at this? Like, why would anyone want to come to this website? And they don't kind of get the whole concept that the internet's a big place and people are searching for lots of things all the time, and people just trip over stuff. And if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because at the completion of the project, I did a search in Technorati to see if there was anything about it, and there are people blogging about it, other educators.
Really?
And,
wow, that's got to make
the one that really grabbed me was a Jewish educator in Israel, and Jewish religion educator blogging about a Catholic project like the Flat Planet.
Huh.
Wow.
I got a comment on my blog about it, which I passed on to the students really quickly. It was just after we got awarded Wikispaces, of a high school teacher in America, but she was a geography teacher doing the environment, and she said that she's actually started to use the final projects of the pupils as teaching tools for her pupils. Because they were that good and better than anything else they could come up with.
Well, that's got to be a feather in your cap, that.
Wow.
Passed that on to the pupils. It was amazing that things like that come through. So.
Yeah, no, well, congratulations, guys. You've done a wonderful job, and congratulations to your students. And I'm sure that this will be an experience they won't forget. Do you have any, just as we close off, you got any throwaway tips for anyone else, any other teachers who might be thinking about integrating some sort of a wiki project into what they do? Neil?
For me, it would be definitely do it, go ahead with it, but make sure you take the time before you start to get it all straight in your head first about what you want them to do, what you want them to get out of it.
Yeah, but you say that, but like from what I can see, that a lot of this was, I won't say thrown together, I don't mean not thrown together, but a lot of this was built on the fly. This was not something that you guys sat down and planned for months in advance. This was something that came up and was pretty much built on the run.
Well, yes and no. I mean, was it February, Simon? We started putting this together? Talking about it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the history page of the first page of the it was February 20th was the first edit to the page, I believe. So,
and it'd be a week or two before that when we first emailed about it as well. So,
But that was in the school semester that you actually worked on it, right?
not for me.
Not for
my
you. Okay.
No, our new semester starts April, so that was like almost a whole semester before for us.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
and I contacted Neil about the project while we were in the first semester in my school, so I didn't even know the students that I would have working on it when we began to plan it.
Okay. Right. So there was more planning than I thought. But it just seems to be something that just sort of really grew organically, and obviously there was a lot of planning in terms of the way it was going to be graded and stuff, and that in itself is somewhat of a miracle that you guys managed to find a consistent grading scheme that was going to work for Canada and the UK, because everything's different from country to country.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I have to thank Simon for that. He did a lot of the grading rubric for the project, and whereas Simon's projects will count towards their final grades. Unfortunately for the UK, the projects for my pupils won't count towards their final grades. It will just count towards the syllabus content. If you see what I mean.
Right.
They'll still have to have an external assessment.
That's because of the GCSE concept.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working. If we manage to get one through for next year, I'm going to try and submit a special requirement to the board to see if I can get it approved. But it might not go ahead.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens for that. So, luckily, with that in mind, then we were working towards what Simon's sort of requirements were, and I was trying to mould it to the syllabus content of ours at the same time. So.
Simon, any tips for any teachers wanting to do something like this? Other than just
as you were saying earlier, I was when I found Neil's blog and I was thinking about Global Collaborative Project, I was thinking to myself, what am I getting myself into? and it was I will admit it was with some hesitation that I clicked send on that initial contact with Neil, and but I did it. I suppose the spirit moved me, and Neil was jumped right in along with me, and there was an organic growth that took place along the way with the project. We did make changes along the way, even though we had started to plan it a couple of months before the students started to work on it. So I would say to teachers who are thinking about this or are worried about integrating technology, the year before, not even the year before I started this, I didn't do any kind of technology integration other than the occasional PowerPoint presentation as part of a lesson.
Yeah.
So this is my first real venture into something something like this project that Neil and I have done with our classes.
Yeah.
So it's not as difficult as they might think. When I did the presentation at my school to the teachers and administrators, I said, if you can use a word processor, then you can use virtually any Web 2.0 tool. The learning curve is very, very low.
Yep.
So
amen to that. Yeah.
Just dive in. The water's warm.
Other thing I would add, let your spirits be let your students sort of enthuse you. They were so enthusiastic that at times when I was struggling with the firewalls and the websites being blocked, they really kind of pushed me forward a bit. To keep me going, sort of thing. So
oh, look, it's so true. It's a wonderful thing what kids can do if teachers would just get out of their way. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to me. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I think it's an amazing project that you've managed to put together. And like I said before, you should be proud of it, and the kids should be proud of it. And I don't know what else to say, but you've done a wonderful job.
Thanks very much, and you played a role in sparking this project, Chris.
Oh well, thanks, Simon. I'm glad it did something.
So pat yourself on the back as well.
All right, no worries. All right. Well, thanks, gentlemen. I'll look forward to your next big project. I'll catch you later. Well, there you go. I think what really impressed me about talking to Neil and Simon is just how easily they managed to put this whole project together. And I guess looking back at it, they probably don't think it was quite so easy as I do, but it was comparatively straightforward. It was really just two guys who had an idea together and thought about a project they could do, and they tapped into these Web 2.0 tools and pretty much just made it happen. And when you think about the scope of what they did, it really did come together relatively easily. I hope they don't mind me saying that. As always, you can go to the website www.virtualstaffroom.net and access the previous episodes, show notes, information about the site, about the project, and it's all there on the site at www.virtualstaffroom.net. I saw a funny t-shirt once on ThinkGeek that said "Will work for bandwidth," and that's kind of what I've been doing at the moment, and this whole project has pretty much been self-funded, just as something that I thought would be an interesting thing to do. As it starts to grow and the number of downloads that people are taking from the site are starting to add up, the cost involved in running this project is starting to also add up. So I've actually put a little donate button on the site, so if you enjoy listening to the show, if you're getting some value out of it, you might consider making a small donation just to help offset the cost of producing it, the cost of bandwidth and hosting, etc., etc. No pressure, no obligation, don't expect you to have to do it, but I did put a button there, and if you feel like it, I'd be most appreciative. Well, that's about it for another episode. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I guess we'll see you soon on the next episode of Virtual Staff Room. My name is Chris Betcher. See you next time.